Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jetly, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so thankful that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is D Jude Miller. He is returning to the show to celebrate his brand new picture book, Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid. Before we invite Daniel back into the studio, we want to invite you to visit our bookstore. Go to readingwithyourkids.com and click on the bookstore link at the top of the page to check out Alice in Wonderland, one of Usborne's graphic classics. When Alice follows a white rabbit into his burrow, she enters a fantastic world of weird and wonderful characters. Lewis Carroll's classic fantasy story is faithfully retold in this gorgeously illustrated comic book adaptation. The graphic classic series it's a great gateway to somewhat difficult stories that can help reluctant readers learn how to love reading. The graphic classic series, it includes some really classic stories like Macbeth, Hamlet, The Three Musketeers, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and so much more. You can find them all at the Reading with Your Kids bookstore. Go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on the bookstore link at the top of the page. Joining us right now from the beautiful city of Binghamton in New York, he is returning to the podcast to celebrate a great new picture book called Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid. Please welcome back Daniel Jude Miller. Daniel, how are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you. That was such a great introduction.
Well, we had so much fun when you were here talking about the monsters in Manhattan. That was such a fun episode and such a fun series of books. I know the Halloween Kid and the Christmas Kid are going to be just as much fun. Why don't we start by having you tell us all about it?
Well, this book is completely different than my Monsters series. And it's actually, when I always tell students, it's probably my most personal book. It's the one that means the most to me, and I'll explain why. Kids tell me all the time, and this is one of the things I don't like to hear. I never like to hear them tell me that they have no good ideas. That's the worst thing you want to hear from a kid, because it's so easy to find good ideas, and sometimes they actually fall right in your lap. And this book is the perfect example. My son and his best friend were born on the same day and in the same hospital. Okay, but we didn't know the family at the time. We wouldn't meet them until later. When they went to kindergarten, we met this family, and we realized they had the same birthday, they were in the same school, and we realized we were in the same hospital, which meant they were in the same nursery together at that time. But the strangest thing is, they became instant best friends, but they have nothing in common at all other than their birthday. And here's the thing. My son is obsessed with Halloween. Okay, he's going to be 13 actually next week. Their birthdays are next week. He has loved Halloween. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I love Halloween," but my son has 3 life-size clowns and 3 life-size zombies in his room right now. His room is decorated. He's got a graveyard he built in the corner. There's spiders on the ceiling. It stays up all year long. He watches horror movies. He writes scary stories. But the weirdest part is his best friend with the same birthday does not like Halloween at all, but has an obsession with Christmas and always has. So believe it or not, this is a totally true story, he has a Christmas tree in his room all year round. So even though they're completely opposite in what they're interested in, they exhibit it the same way and celebrate these 2 holidays all year round.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, it's kudos to you and to your son's best friend's family for allowing them this, this obsession, with the clowns and the zombies and the Christmas tree all year long. That's, I think that's fantastic. But it's so cool that they share this personality trait. This is really wonderful. Do they obsess on anything? Do they share any obsession on anything else?
They don't share anything other than a birthday and the fact that they enjoy each other's company. Like they really like each other, but one of them plays sports. My son doesn't play sports. One of them is into art. My son is more into video production. They have literally one of them, now their heights are starting to get close, but for a long time one was way taller than the other one. But as soon as they met and they realized that the same birthday, they became instant best friends. And then now we've known them for probably almost 7 or 8 years. They just have very different interests. And I mean, you said that we allow my son to do this. We don't have a choice. Like, he's basically commandeered. Like, the only thing we can do is we've made him promise he has to contain the Halloween to just his room. It's not allowed to spread outside the room, because he started putting stuff in the hallway, and it was like April and there were bats in the hallway, and that wasn't going to happen. But these things that he has, he has pumpkins in there all year round. And the funny part is the Christmas kid, he really doesn't like Halloween that much. So when we would go trick-or-treating with them, he would dress as Santa Claus every single year. And they would go around, my son would be something monstrous, and his best friend would either be Santa Claus or an elf or something like that, because he really doesn't like Halloween. It was very funny. So I always tell students when I would go to schools and I would present this book, every single page of this book, everything that happens actually really happened in real life. So I use this book as another example of where you get good ideas from. Sometimes they just happen. They're people that you actually know, which makes it really easy to develop a story. And then I tell them that everything in this book is actually true. So it almost wrote itself just by living the story. Because, it's 100% accurate.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. There are some stories that I share of things that have happened to me on stage performing for over 33 years. And, people swear, you had to have made that up. Where do you get your imagination? I'm like, none of this is random. This is all 100% accurate. And, it is. There are ideas all around us.
Yeah, it's true. When I started doing schools, I made myself and the audience the promise that I would never lie to them, to make the story more interesting. And then like you're saying, I found out that you didn't have to, because most of the time, the stories that you get from meeting kids or living your own life, it's true. Interesting things are happening all the time. There's no real reason to make things up. And I always explain to them, you just got to pay attention, look around, and mainly sometimes stop looking at your screen so much and listen to what you hear and what you see. And you'd be surprised, your grandma is probably pretty interesting and has an interesting story there. This book is purely about two real boys, and it's 100% about them. But a lot of my other books, there's people that I know or things that I've seen that are embedded in the book. So my grandma might be a character in the book I wrote last week. The book's not about her, but it's real easy to just look around and look at the people that you know and your brothers and sisters and your teachers and your friends, and you'll find some interesting people out there.
Yeah, and that would just be a fun exercise for a kid. Imagine your principal. Okay, here's your principal. Right. Now, what would your principal do if he suddenly found himself in the Amazon surrounded by piranha? Just silliness like that.
I used to do an exercise to show them how easy it was to write a story, and the exercise was really simple. I would tell them to give me a noun, and they would give me banana, or it didn't matter, whatever the noun was. And then a lot of times they would give me Principal Johnson. I'd say, okay. Then I would say, give me an adjective, and they would pick something wild, like sleepy. And then I would say, okay, now give me a place, and they would say on the moon. And then I would say, okay, now every story needs a problem. So you have Sleepy Principal Johnson on the moon, but what's the problem? And then they would throw something wild out. And then through this, we would workshop an entire book on the spot about a banana that's purple. That was one that used to come up a lot. Bananas. For some reason, those were always a good noun. That were always purple for some reason. But it's really easy because a person and then an adjective and then a place and then a problem, and then you just run with it. And especially when you do it as a group, right, where they're all yelling things out, and they really can come up with some pretty interesting things without realizing how easy it is to build a story from only a few pieces.
Yeah. You know, you're talking to us about, you know, doing this in a school and in an assembly presentation or in a classroom visit. I know we do have a lot of teachers who listen to the show, but it's mostly parents. And I am thinking that this would be a really, really fun activity for a family to do together, or for families to do together, or, you know, those kids that that are in your carpool to ballet class or soccer practice. Hey, invite them over and spend an afternoon workshopping a story together. What a great time. We all know now, because of COVID and because every parent in the country became a teacher overnight without any degrees. It's just like, you are now a teacher. Congratulations. You know, there's, you know, I don't want to say there's no magic to, because teaching is a great profession, but every parent has the ability to lead kids in an activity like this. And I think it would be a blast.
Yeah, I mean, now, because of all of this, right, there's teachers and librarians and parents that are looking for ways to stimulate their kids and keep them being creative. So I have on my website, I do lots of videos and projects. I'm big on projects. So there's a page called, if you go to my website, djudemiller.com, there's a page called the Page O Fun. And the Page O Fun has all sorts of projects. They have writing projects, drawing projects. There's videos that show the process of how I create a book, so that a lot of these parents that are, you know, maybe they want to help their kids, but they don't know where to start. So a place like that is a great place to just take the things that I'm giving away for free, and I'm showing you how I build stories, how I develop characters, how I create an entire book. And use that and sit with your kids. And since you're the teacher now, or even if they are still in a physical building, it doesn't hurt on the weekend or a rainy day to work with some of these projects. I also there's a new page on that website that's read alouds, so that they can play videos of me, and I give a lot of the backstory on where, like what I just explained, on where each book came from and where the ideas are from, and I give some of the backstory on the creation of the book. So it just helps. Like, I'm trying anything, like all of us now, anything we can do to help keep kids engaged, help keep them creative, and hopefully they can get through this and actually come out stronger on the other end.
Yeah, that is the hope, and I'm just loving it. You know, we're in such a crazy time right now, you know, where we are locked on and we're connected with our screens so much, but we really need to pull ourselves away from the screens, and we're living in a time, I don't know about you, but if I were in 8th grade and I'd have access to all this technology, number one, I'd probably get myself in an awful lot of trouble. But just the idea that we can sit down with our kids in a weekend and create a story and draw illustrations and use an app like Canva to put them together and then publish them. I mean, it's crazy to even think about.
Well, what's funny is actually over here I have every presentation, because when my son, he's going to be 13 now, but a few years ago he asked me out of the blue, how old do you have to be to make a book? And he kind of caught me off guard, because I didn't think that was a thing. Like, there isn't an age, obviously, but I was surprised he had asked. And then I remembered that when I first started doing school visits, I had been given this book here. It was a boy named Milan gave it to me. And so then now when I do my presentations, this is always the first thing I show. The reason is Milan wrote this story. It's called Pete and the Acorns. He did all the drawings for it. And then he went on a website that we've all heard of before called Amazon. And his parents printed up 2 boxes of his own book. It wasn't even very expensive. And the funny part about it is Milan was in the 1st grade. Okay, so I always start presentations by showing this to prove to students and to children that there is no age. And like you're saying, the technology is there to do it by hand, to do it in the computer, but we can all end up with a real book, and it's not very difficult, and it's definitely not expensive anymore. So I hope more kids know that and start younger, because if I would have had the tools that I have now when I was 12 years old, I would have had a lot more books finished. Yeah. But they have the tools, and they should really take advantage of it.
Now, it seems obvious to me that if your kid is a potential writer or dreams about being a writer, then yeah, doing these kinds of exercises makes lots of sense. Just like the ballet classes for the kid who wants to be a dancer, or the lessons for the kid who wants to be a basketball player. But what value does creating a book, writing a story together, what value does that have to the kid who wants to grow up to be a scientist or a basketball player or a ballet dancer? Is there value for those kids to be creative?
Absolutely. And I used to end every presentation. This was the old ending to my presentations, but I used to end with asking them which jobs need creativity and which jobs would creativity benefit you when you got older. And I would get answers all the time. They always start out with artist, writer, stuff like that. But gradually I go, those are good answers, but that's not the one I'm looking for. And then eventually someone would say auto mechanic or nurse. And I would say, now you're onto something, because the answer is every job benefits from creativity. So learning how to write and how to create something when you're younger, even if that's not the field that you eventually go into, you're going to be a better doctor if you can think creatively, because you have to solve problems. You're going to be a better mechanic if you look at it as a visual problem that's being solved rather than just the parts. So I always tell students, because I meet students that go, I don't really like to draw, and that's fine, but you should still try to draw, because that process will actually makes your mind work. It makes you being creative is helpful no matter what you do.
I agree with you 100%. But I'm looking around. I'm almost 100 years old right now, so I can say anything. I don't care what anybody thinks about anything I say. But a lot of the things you're talking about, being creative as a nurse, looking at a problem, coming up with something that's kind of a lot of times the best solutions are those off-the-wall suggestions nobody ever thought of. But it seems to me these days kids are growing up in this culture where if you go against the grain, if you say the wrong thing, if you take a chance and express an opinion that's even slightly different, boy, there's some negative consequences to that. How can we still encourage kids to have the courage to be different and to express their ideas and to think off the wall?
Well, it's funny. When I work with older students, usually that question will come up with like 7th and 8th and 9th graders. And that's the age where, not just in society, but just in their small group, they're usually a little afraid to show their ideas. And I always tell them a story like that. As a writer, okay, as an author, not only is it good for you, for your thinking, but it's good for your soul, because you can get all your feelings out. Okay, like you could be angry and you can put it on paper, because it's probably a bad idea to put it out there for real. If you're sad, being creative is good for you. If you're worried, but here's the key: what you're saying is sometimes they get nervous. You don't have to put your name on it all the time, right? That's throughout history when people wanted to say something but didn't want the problems. You don't even have to put your own name, which is like the coolest thing. I had, before I was doing children's books, I had a job doing editorial illustrations, and I didn't really like the company that I was doing them for. So I decided, because they were just boring. It was just, I wanted to do cool things, and this was all about insurance. It was really boring. So I decided on my second day of work that I wasn't going to sign my name to any of the cartoons. So I would do around 500 cartoons a year for them. I worked for them for 12 years, so I did probably around 6,000 cartoons. Not one has my real name on it. They all have the name. If you ever see a cartoon with the name Otto, that was my pen name. But by putting a different name on it, it allowed me to do the job, but not really, have to worry about who saw it, because it wasn't, this was just me for now. So look, even if they're nervous, make up a fake name. That's like the coolest thing to do. And like you just create the character of the author before you even create the characters in your story.
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool. When you start with telling the story about your son and his best friend, being born on the same day, spending time in the same nursery, and then all of a sudden they became friends. I was thinking, what a great story. You could just imagine the blood, them sneaking out of their little I don't know what you call it in the nursery, with their little beds there and making a blood pact to come back together and meet and solve all the ills of society. But that's how my crazy mind works. This is really wonderful. I'm excited. What's the reaction been to A Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid?
The funny part is, like, I had done the Monsters series, and those were doing really well. And then I needed a break. There's actually 2 more Monsters books coming, but I didn't want to do them all sequentially. So I looked around at a bunch of ideas that I had, and like I said, this one obviously is super personal to me. And I debated it at first on whether it was going to, I knew it would make a good book. The question was, would it resonate, like, with kids? Would they care about the story of my son? And I decided it didn't matter. Like, it was the path I was going to take, and I committed like a year, because that's how long it takes to do the drawings, to doing it. And it was, for better or worse, I was going to finish it almost as a gift somewhat to my son. And if it didn't sell or the kids didn't like it, then that's fine, as long as I finished it. And then it came out, and it turned out like it was this, I guess I shouldn't have underestimated it, because it was a huge response because of the fact that he is a real kid. And he's been with me at some book shows and some book fairs, and then it's always like they're seeing a celebrity when I point it out. I go, this is the real boy. And, I think I underestimated the connection with kids about how stories don't always have to be fantastical and made up. Sometimes they really are about real people, and that sometimes makes it actually feel deeper. And so I was a little surprised. I guess I shouldn't have been, but the response was really, really good. They always ask, where is it going? I don't know, because they're still here and they're still doing things. So I don't know eventually where these 2 boys go. One wants to be a hockey player. The other one wants to be horror movie director. So, I don't know if their paths are really going in the same direction, but let's hope they stay friends for as long as they can.
Oh, that's really, really awesome. Yeah, I can see them going out on the road together.
I wish they have another. I'm waiting for, because they run now in a little group, and there's 2 more boys, twins, which in the story is interesting because their other friends are twins. They don't share the same birthday, but I'm waiting to see where this goes and where is their connection to the other 2. And like I said, their birthday is next week on November 16th. They'll be 13 years old. It all started a long time ago, and who knows where it's going.
Well, we want to wish them a big happy birthday from all of us here at the Reading With Your Kids podcast. And, you were saying you don't know where the story's going to go. We want to know where listeners should go to find out more about Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid and learn all about your monster series and everything else that's going on with you.
All right. It's real easy. It's the letter D, Jude Miller, DJudeMiller.com. And like I said, there's so much stuff to look at there. There's previews of some of the new books I'm coming out with. I actually just had finished a middle grade novel right when this all started. I was right ready to release that, and then this all happened. So it's done. It's just waiting to be released. It's about a boy that goes back in time accidentally by using his cell phone the wrong way. It shows you some of the picture books that are coming up. Like I said, there's a page with games and tutorials and videos and things that'll help kids stay engaged. But there's I don't even know, honestly, and I built it all myself. I don't know how many pages my website is, but it's a lot. And there's things popping up and music and a lot of cool stuff. So the letter D, JudeMiller.com.
That's we just moved our website to a new server, and the person at the hosting company looked and they said, "Wow, this thing is enormous." And I'm like, we just punched stuff in. We've had a great time. We think you should definitely check out Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid, the latest picture book from our friend D Jude Miller. My friend, thanks so much for being back with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's been great.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading With Your Kids podcast. We'll be welcoming Tara Arian onto the show to celebrate Queenie Corona and the 10 Little Prince. That's the next episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, you may be frustrated at the fact that letting folks know about your book is so very difficult now in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, we have something that has helped a lot of authors. It's really made a difference for a lot of authors. It's called the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read Program. It's not a contest or an award. It's a seal of approval. If our panel believes that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. And with that status comes a number of really fantastic tools that can help your book stand out from the crowd of books that are published every single month. How can you find out about it? It's easy. Just go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page. Scroll down to where you see Certified Great Reads. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, want to thank our guest, Daniel Jude Miller. Be sure to check out Halloween Boy and the Christmas Kid. Also want to thank my incredible team, starting with Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she's given me. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.